My name is Nina Segalowitz, Nina Segalowitz. My birth name was Anne Marie Thrasher. I'm originally from Northwest Territories, in a small town called Fort Smith. The work that I have like two areas of my life that I work in. The one side that I'm professionally trained for in terms of formal education is crisis worker, frontline worker, community worker. I've been a community worker in Montreal with Indigenous organizations for about 30 years. And I also do training, Indigenous awareness training for the Canadian Army, for the SPVM, which is the Montreal Police. I also go into universities and colleges and elementary school to talk about Indigenous reality and our history. So that's more the educational side and the more frontline work that I do. And the other side is very artistic. So I've been doing Inuit throat singing, which is called Gatajuk, for about 25 years. Well, I guess about 25, 30 years as well. And I also do hand drumming. And so that side of me, it started off being really like for my own healing, but now today I use it really to help balance out my life. And I also use I've traveled a lot because of throat singing, and I've had a chance to perform with incredible artists and composers. I just recently went to Italy, and I was part of a soundtrack written by Gabrielle Thibodeau, and I was performing throat singing for a black and white film, and it was a silent film festival, and it was incredible to be able to share that part of me in such a contemporary way. So being a 60 Scoop survivor, one of the biggest things that I was cut off from was cultural activities and knowledge and ceremony, and that part of who I was completely, I was completely separated from, not by choice. But my mother, Margaret Thrasher, who was in Inuvialuit, would have taught me the songs and the language. My father, George Vermillion, who was Dene from Treaty 8, would have taught me Dene, would have taught me the language and ceremonies, and I would have been a part of the songs. So when I was 18, it became very important for me to heal from that and to do my own work. And I really wanted to learn who I was. And so one of the ways I did was I learned how to do throat singing, Inuit throat singing. And though it's not necessarily from the style from my region, the songs that I know are Nunavik and Nunavut style. It was still a way for me to reconnect with who I was. And it really it filled a hole in my identity as an Inuvialuit Dene woman. And as I became a mother, it almost became that much more urgent, healing that circle. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is that my girls know who they are. They know how to throat sing. I was pregnant with them when I was throat singing. I carried them on my back when I would be on stage. When I was throat singing. And so for them, it's just a part of who they are, and the same thing with hand drum singing. I've been told that Dene women don't use the hand drum. And I respect that. However, growing up in Mohawk territory and growing up with other elders, I have been gifted drums and I have learnt songs. And for me, that has been a way for me to, again, heal that part of my identity. And when I sing, I share who I am. And I I carry my ancestors with me. So when I do hand drum songs, and I do Inuit throat singing, I think for me, what I try to do is I really bring in my ancestors, and these are songs that, for example, the throat singing songs are songs that have been sung for thousands of years. And so these songs and these sounds that I make, these sounds that I make are sounds that women have been doing for thousands of years, and so I carry them with me. And so for me, being able to carry on that tradition is an incredibly healing part of my identity, and being able to reconstruct and remake and remember who I was meant to be. So, in terms of reclaiming our Indigenous culture, each community has gone through its own path in terms of how much it's lost, how much it's remembered, how much it's saved over time. And I think it's incredibly important that each community really fight to save what is left. So much was lost, and it wasn't just the songs, the ceremonies, because those are really a part of who we are as a people. If we know our language, it changes and it brings us closer to our environment and to who we are. When we do our ceremonies, it links us with something that is incredibly sacred, and it heals us in ways that other things in ceremony can't. In songs and family and gatherings and giveaways and other kind of traditional things. And I think, as we see the impact of loss of culture in our communities, from suicide to addiction to self-harm to violence in couples, violence in the families, feeling a loss. One of the things that ceremony does and Indigenous culture does for us, and it always did, was it helped us find our reason for being. And it helped us find our way. It was the elders that really guided us, and it was our family members that guided us to. They would see something special in us. They would see what our gift was. And their job and their responsibility as elders and adults was to really help the young ones form that gift and help bring that gift out of that person and kind of nurture that. And when we lost the ceremonies and the culture, our youth really lost that guidance, because our elders, our parents and our grandparents were themselves healing from residential school or other intergenerational trauma. So what the youth have lost is that guidance that they would normally get. And I think that the more we learn and the more we remember and we relearn our ceremonies and our cultural ways, that impact will only be positive, because our youth and our adults and all the generations that have suffered from the trauma, what I see is when I see someone who is in addiction or when I see someone who's suffering, I think the community and who we are as Indigenous people have lost the benefit of that person knowing their gift and using that gift. So yeah, I think it's a huge, knowing our cultures has had a huge impact, and relearning will only help heal our communities. So when it comes to our knowledge and our traditions, at right in this moment in history, our communities are healing themselves. And we are trying to reclaim and repatriate our knowledge, whether it's from the museums or from old recordings, or we ourselves are trying to relearn our traditions and our songs. And so right now it's like our communities are healing, and some of us are able to share within a non-Indigenous environment, but others cannot. And I think the most important thing that I think people must keep in mind or be sensitive to is that we are in a healing process. We have gone through the worst times, and we're still struggling. But at the same time, in terms of our traditions and culture, the word appropriation is something that has happened. People feel a sense of connection with a ceremony or a medicine or a song, and they're like really enthusiastic and want to sing those songs and do those ceremonies. But what I would like to ask is that people be sensitive to the process in which we are in at the moment, which is healing our communities, and to respect that what you are asking us to share are sometimes songs and ceremonies that we have only begun to know ourselves. And so just to be conscious of that, and to respect when an elder says no, not right now. And these ceremonies are not just to pass the time. It's not, it's not something that is for fun. It's something that we need as a community to heal from the intergenerational trauma stemming from colonization, stemming from residential school, stemming from the 60s scoop, stemming from the stolen lands, the fact that we were forbidden. A lot of these ceremonies and songs, we were not allowed to sing. We were put in jail for doing the things that you're asking us to share. So right now we are healing. And I think when what we ask is that you give us the space to do the ceremonies, to, people ask me sometimes, what can I do to help as an ally? One of the things is use your presence and your power as a voter, as someone who can advocate for us to have those spaces, to have that land back, to have spaces to do ceremony and to do songs and to do, and just to be, and to be able to teach our next generation the knowledge that was lost over time. So in terms of our traditions, you can, just give us space to do the healing that we need to do. As a mother and a grandmother, it wasn't easy to find my role, what my role was and what my responsibility was in terms of healing from what I had been through, and my hope for the generations to come are really that they have a solid connection with their traditions and songs and ceremonies and language, and that they're able to walk in both worlds, that with that strength of knowing, of identity of who they are, that they can walk within the non-Indigenous world unapologetically, with respect for their community, with respect for themselves, knowing that they have an incredible gift that they were born with. I look at my kids and I can see what they're really good at, and I can see young people, and I see adults who have been through residential school, and some of them are still floundering, but I see what their gift is, or I see what their strengths are, and I really hope that that for each person that is questioning their worth or not knowing where they are in this world, that they were born with something that no one else was born with, and that future generations know that the strength and the resilience that they have within them comes from somewhere. It comes from their mothers and their grandmothers and their great grandmothers and all those who came before them, who struggled and who resisted and who fought and who lived and who celebrated their life so that they can be there. As a 60 scoop survivor, it's been a struggle and a fight, to fight against feeling of imposter syndrome, of not feeling that I had the right to do throat singing, that I felt that I couldn't do the hand drum, or that I couldn't have my tunit, or couldn't get my tattoos, or wear a contemporary traditional outfit. But I really want us as Indigenous people to take up space, just to really take up space unapologetically and know that the space that I take up now was given to me the day I was born, the day I was conceived, the day I was born. I have a right to be here because I am here. And that's the message that I really want people to know. You know, as Indigenous people, we have a right to be here and to celebrate who we are.